Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Menino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hey, everybody. This is Michael Menino, and welcome to Driven Unscripted Success podcast. Today on the podcast, we're interviewing professionals who share their experience with you, the audience, and how they got to where they're at today. And zooming from the beautiful islands of Naples, Florida, we got Michael Critelli. He has a very interesting life. He's done a multiple, as he said, reinvented himself multiple times, and went to Harvard. And we're gonna listen to him and see what he's got to share with us. Michael, how you doing?
Fine. Good to be on this program today. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for coming. We do appreciate it. Could you do everybody a favor and tell them your path, how you got to where you're at today and where you're at today?
Well, I grew up in Rochester, New York, and at the last minute, just before starting college, I made a decision at the recommendation of somebody I was working for to go to the University of Wisconsin, from which I graduated. Went on to Harvard Law School, thought I was going to be a private practice attorney, but I did that for 5 years and then made a switch in 1979 to be an in-house attorney at Pitney Bowes. Went up the ranks to be general counsel there and took on an assignment that many people told me was a step backward. I took on human resources, and that was a life-changing
lot of work,
responsibility in a good way, because I ended up becoming a leader and an innovator in employer-sponsored healthcare. And that became a ticket for me not only to move over into running businesses and eventually being the CEO, but having a case study written about what we did at Pitney Bowes by Harvard Business School professor Michael Porter. And I spoke about our work at the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the School World Council on Entrepreneurship, and it propelled me into a entrepreneurial business after Pitney Bowes, which I retired from in 2008, where I ran a health information technology company, and I became and still am an advisor to Rand Corporation, and I'm on a health board in Connecticut called ConferMed. So a lot of my post Pitney Bowes life has been in the health space. And I've also had two other interesting experiences in addition to being entrepreneurial after retirement. One is I produced a full-length feature film called From the Rough. It's the first minority woman to coach a men's college sports team. I learned about it through a white Swedish chess coach for one of my sons, who got a scholarship to Tennessee State, a historically Black college. And I found his story interesting. I learned about the coach, and we profiled her in a movie that came out in 2014, still available on Amazon Prime and a few other streaming sites. And today I'm running with two other people a business which has two sides to it. It's called MoveFlux Corporation. One side is artificial intelligence software as a service engagements, and the other is a health newsletter and network called the Make Us Well Network. So I'm pretty busy, and I'm enjoying different things.
So much for retirement.
So
much for that concept of retirement. What is retirement to you, right? Sitting down and doing nothing's not part of your lifestyle. I think it's an Italian thing. I really do. I don't know about Italians ever sitting down and doing anything other than talking and drinking vino. The AI industry, that's a very interesting industry right now, and I heard there's a lot of competition in it. What sets you guys apart from what you're doing now? What comes easy to you, find challenging it to other people?
I think it's the fact that we understand its proper place with a client. And it's a thought partner. Number one, it's not going to take over jobs. Number two, change management is very, very critical. And that's something I had to do at Pitney Bowes. And just as I've reinvented myself, I really marketed the value of people continually learning, growing, and reinventing themselves. And so the key to selling the change that AI brings is getting people to understand how it helps them do what they do better, as opposed to how it's going to replace them, because there's always more work to be done. I think the most frightened people are those who have gotten to a point in their life by basically doing what other people have expected, getting credentialed, climbing the ranks by doing things a certain way. And that's not the world that we're in today. The world we're in today is one that rewards adaptability and
Yep.
something that comes natural to me. The final comment I'd make on it, on AI, is that it's it's not something that's dictated by top-down plans. There's a lot of experimentation, a lot of bottoms-up thinking, and at Pitney Bowes, we were renowned for acting on ideas that came up from the front lines. Uh, One of our early CEOs and the most influential person in the history of Pitney was a gentleman named Walter Wheeler, started two-way communications meetings back in 1941. And he would give a state of the business report and then would listen to comments and questions from frontline employees. And I became schooled in the value of really listening to people on the front lines. And when you're implementing AI, you basically have to do the same thing. You cannot impose it on people. You have to get people on the front lines to show you how it can work best.
Agreed. And you're talking about the on the front lines and the labor force. I heard a crazy little situation or form of government in, I think it's Switzerland or Sweden. They have to have a certain amount of people on the board of directors to be literally laboring in the industry that they're in. So if it's manufacturing, people in the manufacturing line were on the board meetings. And I thought that was a great idea. And it sounds like you agree with that.
I don't know about a board of directors, but I think the board of directors has to have access to frontline employees. One of the things I implemented as the chairman and CEO of Pitney Bowes is not only myself and my executive team, but board members, we would have meetings with people that they did not see at board meetings.
Mhm.
We called them skip level meetings. So, and we did a lot of site visits. I was on the board of Eaton Corporation for 23 years. And one of the most valuable experiences was doing site visits and doing them in smaller numbers, not the entire board going to a site, but we did three board members at a time that would spend a day and a half, and we would walk the floor with the frontline employees. So I think however you do it, whether it's formally like they do in Europe or informally like best practices companies do it, you have to understand what life is like for the people that are actually connecting with the customers and with the products that and services the company uses.
Exactly. And the manufacturing and the distribution, all of it. You got to understand all of it.
Yeah,
When I,
I even met with frontline postal employees
oh,
and
there you go.
customers. I remember, most my predecessors would meet with the Postmaster General or the executive team at the Postal Service. I would go to a processing center. I was the first of my company CEOs to meet with the heads of the postal unions. They used to stay away from the postal unions. I met with three of the four unions. And in fact, I spoke at three postal union conferences during my tenure. And we partnered with the Association of Letter Carriers to launch a product that's out in the market today, which is a voting by mail solution called ReliaVote. In fact,
Nice.
I actually closed the ReliaVote deal here in Collier County, Florida. Secure closed loop voting by mail system. So I
Oh,
have a
that's awesome.
belief in connecting with the people that have to do the work.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And when I was in my industry in construction, I talked to everybody because they had a lot more valuable information than people let on.
I'm the president of the association here, and people ask me what my primary job is, and I say I've got a great property manager, and I basically consider myself a servant leader to make sure I keep her happy.
Yeah,
And I talk to her every day. I say, what do you need to be more successful? What resources do you need? What tools do you need? And she's gotten offers to be paid a lot more money, but she stays with us because she comes to work and it's a very fulfilling environment.
agreed. Yeah, people will work for less money if they enjoy their work. And we are in multifamily, so we deal with property managers all the time. And what I like to say is, my door's always open, my phone's, up and running. If I can't talk to you right away, I'll call you right back. And 90% of the time when they call me, it's always a great conversation. And, it's not say more of 100% of the time, it's a great conversation. And just things need to get done. Whatever emergencies are, they just, they're not really emergencies, in a house or a building or an apartment complex, unless there's a fire or a tornado, it's really not much of an emergency.
Yeah, I learned something else when I was at Pitney Bowes. When you visit factories or distribution centers or customer sites, there was a term that was used by a sales representative early in my tenure at Pitney Bowes, and he said, "Steal with your eyes. Be very observant of things that people don't necessarily tell you, but that they're acting upon." And I picked up on a lot of things and I was actually the first CEO that I know of to hire full-time anthropologists to help us figure out what customers needed. I would send them out to customer sites and they would observe and interview. We did focus groups, we did surveys, we took in the data from feedback from customers, whether they were complaining or they were happy with things. But there were a lot of things they didn't tell us, but that a good observer picked up on. And
Yep.
so and I
Steal with
would,
your eyes.
yeah, steal with your eyes.
I like that. That's a great saying. And when I actually start using that.
Yeah.
So everybody's had challenges, and you sound like you had a pretty diverse career, and you're not going to stop.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of challenges. What is one of the biggest challenges you've had? How have you overcome it in your career?
My leadership style and my interpersonal style is very low key. And I have to make people understand not only how much I know, but when I really want something very badly. So I end up sometimes having to be very persistent, and people need to understand when I'm very serious about something, and I have to establish that uh, as opposed and I don't try to put. I want people not to be complacent, but I also don't want them to be fearful. And striking that balance as a leader is challenging. So, I have to say to people, you don't want to get too comfortable, but you also don't want to be looking over your shoulder all the time either.
Right. There's a happy medium. I agree with
Uh,
that wholeheartedly. I was just looking at my disc profile 5 minutes before we hopped on here. And it says engaging and motivational. But what I have to watch is being Italian, is looking pushy and what else does it say? Looking pushy and manipulative because I'm so engaging and inspirational.
yeah,
So you're
I don't have to
100%
worry
right.
about, yeah, I generally do not have to worry about somebody thinking I'm I'm belligerent or pushy. I have the
Right.
opposite problem. I try to be polite to people, uh, and sometimes you, although I will say to them, this is something that I take very seriously. Um, it takes a while for sometimes for that to sink in.
We have we have complementary skill sets. So together in business, I think we do really well because I'm great at motivating, and you'd be great at explaining why I'm good at it.
Yeah, I have to work
Your
with my business
articulated skills.
partner. He tends to be very blunt, and sometimes he'll say to me, "I'm not getting across. Maybe we have to put it in your words." So,
Right. That's a good idea. I'm not doing a good job. Could you reword this for me?
yeah.
Um, Sounds like things are going well in your businesses. As you're looking forward to the future, this is the one question that scares most people. How do you transition from making money to creating passive income? What do you do? Any tips and tricks on that?
Um, Not really. I hate to say it, but my wife and I are uh, we have very good passive income from my past lives as uh, I did well at Pitney Bowes. I did even better as a shareholder and director of Eaton Corporation. And uh, I did advisory work for a couple private equity firms and got into a couple of their funds. Um, we we have a fairly strict discipline, and we've worked with the same financial advisor for about 25 years. And we, for example, I don't do a lot of speculative. I basically limit
Investing.
speculative investments to about 1 to 2% of our assets.
Good.
And I will say my wife has done a better job understanding the value of real estate investments. And she was the one that found this property, this building, this unit. And I discovered only after the fact that there are a number of unique attributes about where we live. There are only 21 units along the Gulf Shore Boulevard here, this close to the water, where every room has a view of the Gulf, and where we do not have a public access beach right outside. The other two buildings, and where our swimming pool is on the beach, it's not back toward the road. The other building that's like us, quarter mile away, is close to a public access beach, so it's very noisy. So we're in a quiet place, and my wife picked this out of, and I don't know, she has very, very good instincts on real estate, and she did the same up north, and we've been in the same association for 31 years. So
Nice.
it's good to have somebody alongside you who's got use your term complementary skills. My
Skill
wife
set.
understands real estate, and we've made some
Nice.
good real estate investments. Real early in our life, we made a couple bad real estate investments in New York City, but that was because we did not understand the implications of tax law changes, and that was one of the things I learned. If Be careful about any business, and that was true at Pitney Bowes as well. Be careful about any business that the value of which depends heavily on tax laws and accounting principles, because those can change. So you got to look for the fundamentals. Is this something that's sustainable? As
Right.
opposed
Uh,
to like Pitney Bowes made a lot of money in equipment leasing, but then the tax laws changed, and the leasing business became a lot less advantageous, the part of the business we were in. And I
Understandable. What taxes, we're in multifamily, and taxes are a huge consideration. Each state has different tax codes and laws, and then also evictions are tough in certain areas too. So we just try and
yeah.
avoid those areas, avoid those pitfalls. Um, I got a question for you. You got a long, interesting life. So if you could go back to your 20s in the same mindset you have and everything you've experienced, into the same body you had, what would you do differently, and what would you do the same?
Um, what would I do the same? I would continue to reinvent myself. Um, I would probably uh, have been a little bit more forceful, particularly in my early years at Pitney Bowes. Uh, and before that, with the law firm, I failed in two law firm jobs, and particularly the second one, for a reason. And it was that I was doing great legal work, but I did not understand to the degree that I now do that when you're in a product or service business, it doesn't matter. You're taking care of two problems. One is the specific problem that the product or service is supposed to deal with. And the other is the peace of mind that the customer or your peer or your superior wants to have that you can provide. So you always have to be mindful of that the second is usually more important than the first. And it took me into my 30s to understand that
Well,
you
we
have
gotta
to
we gotta
attend to
grow up.
people's emotional needs.
Right, right. Yeah, that's building houses and apartments. The one thing that blew my mind when I was in it was that dealing with men's emotions when they come to work and they have a bad day at home or some at work, and then it's surprising how you can understand dealing with the women's emotions, but dealing with construction guys' emotions, it's interesting to say the least, and you learn a lot. You learn how
Yeah,
to
when
deal with people.
we built a home uh, that we now live in. We renovated it once, but we built it in 1993.
Nice.
And we retained an attorney who was probably at the time going to say 60 years old, and he was one of the wisest people I knew. And I had known him because he did work for Pitney Bowes. And the night before we were scheduled to sign the contract, he said, I'd like to, or the day before, he said, I'm coming over at 7 o'clock tonight. And we thought he was going to be presenting the contract to us and walking through the terms and conditions. And he rang the doorbell and he said, I want to give you something. It's a video cassette of a movie called Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House. And it was a 1948 movie with Cary Grant and Myrna Loy. And I said, well, what about the contract? He said, you don't have to worry about that. I've got everything taken care of. Watch this movie. It tells you a lot that can go wrong when you build your dream house.
Yeah.
And tell me whether you have the intestinal fortitude to deal with that. So we watched the movie.
That's a good idea, but I don't know if I would have done that.
Well, I had a lot of,
There's
I knew this guy. I had known this guy. I had known this guy for about 12 or 13 years. So he could pull that off. I knew he had gotten the legal stuff covered. And this was the last piece of it. But he said, this is about you and Joyce, that's my wife's name, sitting there and saying, here's some of the things that can go wrong. It can be delayed. There can be unexpected things going on. There are things that um, you're not going to know until it happens. And you're going to wonder, should we have done this? And you got to decide, do you really want to do this? Do you want to
right,
make this venture into the unknown? And
right.
so we did that and we went forward and we were very happy with the decision,
The
although we did
process.
have delays for reasons that we didn't expect.
I understand that wholeheartedly. I would have gave you the money pit with Tom Hanks and oh God, what was her name? It was a more comedy about fixing up this mansion. They got a mansion for a great deal, and then they were fixing it up, and there's all kinds of problems, and went grossly over budget. And when they got done, though, the guy, the place was gorgeous, and they said, the whole movie was about being married during a new build or a remodel, because that's the toughest part of it. And
Yeah, we did a remodel living in a home right after we got married, and that was infinitely worse.
yeah,
Uh, Also in Darien, the interesting thing was we didn't think we knew what we were doing. we sold the home. We ended up selling it at a loss because we wanted to move into New York City at the time. My wife took a job down in the World Trade Center, and
Oh,
and
were you
they
guys there at the time?
no, no, no. She left that job in 1983. This was
Good.
1981 that we sold and moved into New York. And the people who bought the home changed. There was one room where my wife's cousin, who was a decorator, persuaded my wife against her better judgment to paint this big room a certain color that worked in New York City, but really didn't work in Connecticut. Other than that, they changed nothing. We didn't know we sold the home to them in 1981. We got reacquainted with them 20 years later. And it was, other than repainting that room, they had changed nothing that we did.
Well,
So,
that's good. That's
I
good. Your
know.
design skills are great.
Yeah.
Um, Looking to the future, what do you guys got planned for the next 6 to 12 months in your business?
Well, I want to bring together the AI from the MoveFlux part of the business into the Make Us Well network. My passion is to deal with health issues that occur outside the healthcare system. And the things that I learned when I ran Pitney Bowes was we had a lot more control over people's health as an employer than we realized. And we gave them much better food to eat. We gave them much lower stress uh, work environment. We got them to be more physically active.
Oh,
We
that's huge.
changed the indoor air quality environment and cleanliness. And I want to educate people that health is more within their control.
Mhm.
I'm not sure I agree with Secretary Kennedy on the vaccine, his position on vaccines, but I wholeheartedly agree that we need to focus on health as opposed to health care
Right.
because you cannot have any insurance system that where there's open-ended risk and
Mhm.
deteriorating risk, which we have today with the American health system.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, the stats show it too. We got the largest obesity, we got diabetes, we got heart disease just running rampant. But at least he's doing it like you said. The vaccines I don't know about. Everybody asks me about it. I go, I had it right when it first came out, so I didn't think I needed it. But with his getting rid of dyes and all the additives and preservatives inside food, I 100% agree with him.
Yeah,
100%.
my daughter was diagnosed with Lyme disease 6 years ago, and she was debilitated. And she started working on her diet. And then she moved to Germany 3 years ago. She lives in Berlin. And of course, they don't have the food additives there. They don't have the preservatives.
They don't have the additives and preservatives.
Healthier. She does not drive in a car. She's using public transportation and walking. And she's the healthiest she's been since before she had the Lyme disease.
Bingo. That's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to illustrate. That's exactly. She went over there with a handicap, and now she's probably more normal than she's ever been.
She's coaching other women now. She's actually got a side
Good.
business called
Well, she should be
FoodSpark.com.
working with Kennedy on reforming our food system because I think the Food and Drug Administration has been just doing a horrible job for the last 60 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Michael,
A lot
listen,
longer
thanks a
than
lot
that.
for yeah. I think we're us Michaels agree a lot. So listen, thank you very much for the interview. Appreciate your time and taking time out of your busy day to speak with us.
You're very
If
welcome.
anybody from the audience would like to get in touch with you, how would they do that? What would you like? What would be your preferred method of contact?
Email, and
Okay,
it's
going to
MJ Critelli, my first initial, middle initial, last name at gmail.com. MJ Critelli at gmail.com.
perfect. All right. If anybody wants to talk to Michael, just please give him a call or give him a contact, and he's a wealth of knowledge. Michael, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for inviting me, Michael. It's very nice meeting you on this call, and I really found it energizing.
Good. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Menino out.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success Podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.